everybody, and welcome to the Almost Sideshow. This is our little side project we have going on our podcast right now. I am your host, Terry Plucknett. Joining me is Mr. Adam Daly. How's it going, Adam?
Hello, guys. Hey, Terry. I'm really excited because this is a first-time watch for me. Never seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty excited.
Cool. So our idea here with this Almost Sideshow is we will be deep diving a series of some sort, one episode at a time. But we're starting with one of my favorites, and as Adam said, it's a first-time watch for him. We are starting with Band of Brothers. Yeah.
Let's do it.
The 10-episode HBO miniseries celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. This is one of my all-time favorite pieces of filmmaking. And so I haven't heard any of Adam's thoughts on this yet. So hopefully he thinks the same. But we're going to get into this, and this is episode 1. So we are going to start by talking about episode 1 of Band of Brothers. And so this is something where hopefully you watch along. So you go watch if you're listening to this and you've never seen Band of Brothers, go watch episode 1 now. Pause this. Don't continue on this. Watch episode 1 and then come back and listen to us. And then watch episode 2, come back and listen to us. And that's how this is going to go. We're going to be, we're on, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for watching. If you're listening to us on the podcast channel, thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review on all of our platforms for the podcast. Make sure you subscribe, hit that whatever. Adam, you're the YouTube guy. The like button, the subscribe button.
Subscribe and the bell icon so you can be notified whenever we drop some more content, and leave a comment down below and join the conversation, because Almost Sideways is the place for movie conversation.
What he said. Exactly. And make sure look up almostsideways.com. You can find a lot of the information there. So yes, episode 1, Band of Brothers. I am super excited for this. So let's talk about this. Episode 1, which is one of my favorite episodes. Adam just watched it for the first time. This episode is called Currahee, named for the mountain that they run up in boot camp. We stand alone, 3 miles up, 3 miles down. This is the introduction. This is where we meet all the characters. We see them through boot camp. This company that is going to go fight in World War II, go and invade Europe, and be a part of almost every major battle going through everything. So, Adam, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what you saw in the episode and what you thought, since this is your first time going through this, and then I will react to you.
Oh, perfect.
and tell you, and if you agree with me, I'll tell you how smart you are. And if you disagree with me, I'll tell you how dumb you are. Just letting you know. Okay,
that sounds good. So, out of the 4 episodes so far that we have currently watched, this is the introduction, the little longer episode. So, introducing a ton of characters. So, my first impression is that the pace is slow moving because you're getting so much backstory to a bunch of the characters. I guess I should start off first. I love the introductions with the military veterans, like in the opening the episodes every time. I think that's a really classy move to pay respect to them, and also kind of set up some of the events too, and the after effects of them too. I really like that. But anyway,
and I will let me just throw in really quick that you find this out a little later, a little bit of a spoiler for you, but they're more than just veterans. They're the actual members of Easy Company.
Oh, okay. I had a feeling that's where I was going to go. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's good. That's even better.
Mm.
But the biggest thing here is I kept on calling back. If you've listened to Almost Sideways, we do these power rankings, and you did best out of, I can't remember exactly the list, but it was basically against type of acting performances. You mentioned David Schwimmer and Ross from Friends, but he is totally not that guy. This is definitely his show. This whole episode was built around this character, and all the military people underneath him reacting to him basically and just being like not tolerating him at all. And Damian Lewis's character, which I think is probably one of my favorite ones right now, he is just at this time just very quiet, just kind of observing, doing what he's told. But you see a lot of actors from, well, we'll get into that too. It's a bunch of people pop up in this show and this episode, and I think this is actually a really fascinating character study on the David Schwimmer character. I still think it's one that I respect a lot, and I enjoyed, but it's definitely the slower pace kind of. I was like, there's so many people, I was getting like bombarded with information. So I definitely have maybe do another watch on it to fully understand exactly what was going. But talking about building Easy Company and having them become a unit was really awesome. And I loved that sequence. My favorite scene in the whole episode was when the one guy was running up the hill, all of a sudden they all come running. And then they got David Schwimmer with short shorts coming up and basically like had a little smirk because, yeah, you guys are getting it now. You guys are like working together as a unit, not just individuals. So that's the best scene of the show. And it definitely has progressed through, and I really liked it, and especially the turn that his David Schwimmer's character does take in this, where we're talking spoilers here, where he is actually not really good in battle. He's very book smart, but not actual combat smart, and can get people killed. And there's kind of a mutiny going on too. A lot of people going behind his back to try to get him out, and I thought he was out of the show until very recently. So interesting to see what happens if he comes back in later episodes too. But yeah, I thought this was a really pretty dang solid introduction to the show and a bunch of characters too. So an easy, if we're doing ratings, it's a 3-star episode for me. Pretty dang solid. Definitely have to do a rewatch. I can see that ranking go up a little bit for me.
All right. Yeah, so Adam, you've watched the first 4 episodes so far. Yes. Right now we're just talking about the first one. And yeah, you're right. This is like an entire episode of exposition. This is an entire episode of introduction. There's really not any action that takes place in this episode. You're just learning who all these people are, and it is one giant character study, which is one of the things I love about this episode. Yeah, so I got to tell you my history with this episode. So I was first introduced to Band of Brothers. I'm in high school. This was probably, I was trying to remember, it was spring of 2002 or spring of 2003. And I was on a school bus on my way to a music festival, a choir festival. And the kid who sat next to me on the bus, shout out Aaron Hunter, I'm sure you're not listening, happened to bring his laptop and the box set of Band of Brothers.
Oh, wow.
And I just happened to be the kid sitting next to him, and he said, I have headphone splitters. Here, you're watching this with me. Ooh, and we sat there. Splitter. Yeah, and so we sat there on the bus and watched the entire first episode of Band of Brothers. And I instantly was obsessed. Like, this was the greatest thing ever. And it all starts with David Schwimmer. He's one of the first people you see in the episode, and he dominates this episode, and he gives one of my all-time favorite performances because it's so unexpected. It is so not Ross. And that's why he was on that list of playing against type. This is the exact opposite you would expect from him. And this came out 2001. This came out still in the middle of Friends. This was in the middle of the height of Friends happening. And all of a sudden, you see him come out as this bastard drill sergeant that is whipping this company into shape. It's just fascinating to watch. And he does such a good job at it. Usually a recognizable face like that's known for one thing, you get stuck in, and you see him, it's like, oh, it's Ross. The second you see him, he's not Ross. He's Lieutenant Sobel, and you hate his guts. Yeah. And I will say, I've also read the book Band of Brothers that this was based on by Stephen Ambrose, and it's not if Stephen Ambrose writes like very historical, so it's like a giant historical essay. But one of the things he says, and one of the things that makes Easy Company so special is their bond, and you see that bond develop throughout the episode. And one of the reasons, and he really hammers this home, the reason they have that bond is they bond over their hatred of Sobel. Like that is like the one thing, like they are going to bond over that hatred. And it was Nixon, Ron Livingston's character.
Yeah.
He even says it where he's like, he's a genius. I know the type. And he said, and the quote is, you know anyone in this company that wouldn't double time Currahee to piss in Sobel's morning coffee? I mean, he is pushing them just so they can, just say screw you to Sobel. But they also are so happy when they can get rid of him because he's so jumpy in the field. Like you said, he's horrible in the field. He's horrible in combat.
I was not expecting that, to be honest with you. When they first do that first drill, was not expecting that first drill when they're doing the mapping thing and they're kind of pinned down. They're like, we need to go this way. Let's move out. And everybody's like, wait, what are we doing? And it's not. And then they go to the other one where we're going to cut this fence. We'll get that a little bit later. But I was not expecting that turn at all.
Well, and I think you misinterpreted a little bit something too, because you said there's a scene where they're running along and he gets that little wry smile on his face. And like they're getting it. The very next scene is when he busts Winters for a BS disobeying a direct order because he saw Winters starting to rally them around him, and he started to see a power struggle, and he needed complete and total control. And so he never was looking at it and saying, look at the company I'm putting together. He was looking at it and saying, I am in control. And when I say jump, you say how high, and no one is going to threaten that.
Dang, yeah. I totally forgot that scene, actually. And then because there's so much information you're getting from it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So, all right.
Back now, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. So you mentioned the cast of characters here. And I think one of the most fascinating things, going back and looking at this 20 years later, is looking at the cast of characters. So, first episode, just the first episode, you have the first two people you see are Ron Livingston and Damian Lewis. Ron Livingston at the time, you already knew his face. He's like one of the few faces you knew because he was in Office Space already at this point. People knew who Ron Livingston was. Damian Lewis has become a thing. And then you go down the line, you've got Dominic Cooper played a role. Michael Cudlitz has been in a bunch of stuff. Michael Fassbender is in this. He plays Private Christensen.
I could not find him.
You haven't found him yet?
He's in 7 episodes, but I haven't seen him yet.
Okay, you have. You just didn't recognize him. If you remember the scene where they went for the night hike, and then they all had to turn their canteens over to make sure nobody drank anything. He's the one that drank something, and it came out too soon.
Wow, that's him. Wow.
Yep, okay, him. That's him. Dexter Fletcher is in this, who hasn't done a whole lot of acting since, but he's a big-time director now. He directed like Rocket Man. He is the one that finished Bohemian Rhapsody for Bryan Singer. Let's see here. Stephen Graham, from The Irishman, he's in this. He's Private Ranny.
Yeah.
Scott Grimes. Simon Pegg has a tiny, tiny little role.
There was a Sergeant Schobel's lackey in that.
Yeah, exactly. Neil McDonough pops up at the end of this episode. There's such a who's who. Donnie Wahlberg, of course. Donnie Wahlberg. As Lipton, he's in here too, but it's amazing to look back on it and see the talent that were just no-namers at the time, and now you watch and say, I recognize that face, I recognize that face, which is so cool.
It's funny because we just watched a series. My wife and I watched the Saw franchise, and Donnie Wahlberg's in it too, and it looks completely different. Like just a couple of years difference. There's like 7 years gap between films, and he's aged a lot more in the Saw franchise than he did in Band of Brothers. He looks incredible in Band of Brothers. Yeah.
Well, and then you think about it too. This is 3 years after his tiny role in The Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so he definitely has a very he has a lot of range that he doesn't really show that often, but it's there when he wants to. So yeah, huge cast of characters here. One of the things I wanted to talk about is who's your favorite character of the episode. And there's so many characters that you get introduced to in this, and so it's kind of hard to pin one down for the first episode. And every episode, as you might have noticed going through the first 4, every episode kind of has a character that is the central focus of the episode. And so, and obviously this one, it's Sobel. He's the one that's kind of that major focus.
Yeah.
I would say one of my favorite characters that comes out of this is Colonel Sink, who's the just overarching one that's in charge of what's going on. And one of the reasons I love it is because it's played by Dale Dye. And if you don't know who Dale Dye is, he is like the expert war consultant in Hollywood. He has been the consultant that, he trains. He usually is the one that trains the actors on how to be soldiers. And he's done everything from like Platoon to Band of Brothers and pretty much every war film in between. And it's great that he has a role here because you totally get the vibe. Yeah. This guy is someone who should be in charge in the military. And it's because he actually was.
Yeah.
And he has that authority over them because he literally was their drill sergeant as they were training to be actors playing soldiers.
That's pretty cool. And I had no idea. I would never have guessed that, but that's actually a cool little backstory onto that guy too. So,
who's one of?
Yeah, hold on once. Sorry.
You're good.
Daddy.
Wait.
Doesn't go to I.
Please. Okay, well then, take the charger and go plug it in, please. Okay. Watch it now, okay? I'm gonna clean
Okay. Okay. All right. I gotta love it. At least you understand.
I totally get it. Totally get it.
Yeah. But this time it was
All
the
right.
teenagers that came in. Anyway. Okay.
All right. So
my favorite character. Okay.
Yeah. Who's your favorite character?
I think we kind of talked about David Schwimmer Schobel's character is kind of the focal point, and a kind of really a good kind of villain or guy that you kind of like love to hate is kind of sometimes with some things I like. But there's also something about Damian Lewis's character that is captivating because he doesn't say much yet, and I like to see how he's just following orders. But you can see the gears. In my opinion, how I interpreted it was he doesn't agree at what's being done, and he has his own way of wanting to do things. But he still is a good soldier, and he has to follow his orders. But yeah, he's one of my favorite characters if coming out of the first episode. Of course, there's other actors now that are other characters in the show that I know from the first episode that I've kind of slowly progressed and liked, especially in the last couple episodes. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, Damian Lewis probably is my favorite of the episode right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on underneath the surface there. And he does a great job of internalizing it and letting you see that there's more than what he's saying going on for sure. I would say another one of my favorites, and this is getting to something that you referenced a little bit also, is Scott Gomez. No, not Scott Gomez. Rick Gomez is George Luz. Luz, he's the comic relief in the room all the time. And where it shines the most is the moment that you mentioned earlier of the cutting of the fence. and when all the Sobel's screwing up again, and all the soldiers are hiding behind this bush, and they just look at Luz and say, "Can you impersonate his boss, his commanding officer, so we can get moving. And he does like this spot on impersonation and gets him into trouble.
Yeah. Who told you to cut that fence?
Major Horton did.
Yeah.
Major Horton.
Yeah.
He's on leave.
Yeah, he's not even here. Like, what are you talking about?
London.
That's a great scene. Like, that's really good. Yeah.
It's so good. It's
low
so
key one
good.
of my favorites too, just because the whole everything that leads up to that is just great. So.
Yeah. So that's such a great moment. Another one of my favorite scenes is when all the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, they decide to all resign to fight against Sobel. It's like, how are we going to handle this? And it's after he's already busted Winters, and Winters looks like he's heading towards court-martial, and all of them band together, Lipton, Gardner, all these guys band together and say, we're done. We resign if Sobel is going to be our commanding officer. And just that moment of unity, again, against Sobel, but also in favor of Winters and how much he is liked amongst the group is just a powerful moment.
I think it's awesome how the ending plays out, because they're supporting Winters, but also Winters at the very end, because there's three Neil McDonough's character comes in too, and Winters doesn't agree with being not friendly with the troops, but also not being as strict as Sobel. So I thought that's a good character dynamic between all three of them, and I've always liked Neil McDonough and everything. I'm just like, it's that guy with the bright blue eyes. I always like watching him. So I liked him when he popped up at the end of the episode too. So,
and he looks way too old to be a part of that.
But he also doesn't look like he's aged at all.
Right?
Like,
yeah. I think he's just someone who's always looked the same age, like since he was like 12.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's a Paul Rudd type.
Yeah.
So when Sobel leaves, the new commander of Easy Company is Lieutenant Meehan, who seems like a very respected and strong leader. And I also love the moment when him and Winters figure out that Normandy is going to be where they have to jump, simply because that's how far the planes can go when they've been doing their practice jumps. I mean, it made perfect sense when they're like, okay, then Normandy it is. Like, all right, then let's plan on how this is going to work there. I mean, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, that was cool. And it's like, of course, when you mentioned the name Normandy, the Storm on the Beaches, Normandy, you directed towards Saving Private Ryan, and I'm thinking like, oh crap, this is happening exactly as Captain Miller's going on the beach in his same director, same writer with Tom Hanks in there, producers. So it's like you can definitely see the comparison. So I'm doing the whole side by side as the story's progressing. Yeah, it's kind of hard not to. Yeah,
just tell them the different side of it. And yeah, Spielberg and Tom Hanks produced this. So this episode was directed by Phil Alden Robinson, who I'm trying to remember some of the other stuff that he has done. He was writer of Field of Dreams. I think he directed Field of Dreams too. Field of Dreams, Sneakers, Sum of All Fears are some of the things that he did. So he's
Band Brothers is this best thing. So
probably, yeah. This first, well, and it's a different director every episode, I think.
Yeah.
So, but this one was definitely a highlight for him. Yeah. But yeah, seeing and this came out 3 years after Saving Private Ryan, and Tom Hanks did a very similar thing after Apollo 13 as well. About 3 years after Apollo 13, he came out with the HBO miniseries From the Earth to the Moon, which told some of the other story around the NASA and the space race at the time.
Interesting.
I would say my MVP of not only this episode, but the entire series is Michael Kamen and the score. This score is such a beautiful piece of music. And something about just that opening, the opening main theme that you hear during every opening credits just puts a smile on my face, and it's just such a perfect blend of peace but sorrow, camaraderie and brotherhood, through war and through struggle. It is just such a beautiful work of composing, and it's one of my favorite scores of all time. Is the score to Band of Brothers.
Great call on that. For me, I think I'm probably going with a performance. I'm going to go with David Schwimmer for Shovel, because you're feeling the same hatred that everybody around him for that character through the whole thing. So maybe that goes to the writing as well. But when a guy is basically only known as Ross his whole entire career, I think there's something special when there's this performance that I think doesn't get talked about nearly enough. So I will always have that in my mind now as that performance, because it's really great. It's a great way to start off the show, give you a character and get you put in that world and those scenarios because you hate that guy so much. So he's my most valuable player in this.
One of the best little microcosms of that character and his performance is just something really, really small that happens, and I don't even know if you noticed it. When after he has his meeting with Colonel Sink and realizes that he's lost Easy Company, he's getting transferred to this other training base. He leaves and he hops in a Jeep, and the Jeep drives by Lieutenant Winters, and Winters salutes him, and he turns and looks the other way.
Yep.
And just that little moment of screw you.
Yeah.
And it is so telling, and that's so perfectly what his character is in just that one little moment. It's like, I'm out for me, and screw you because you won, and I hate that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you won this battle, but we'll see what happens next.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
So this episode ends. Well, it ends the same way it starts. It starts with that the opening, the very opening little thing is them getting ready for D-Day.
Yep.
And it ends with them hopping in the planes, because the plan is they're going to drop in to Normandy behind the front lines the night before and try and clear some space for the guys that are hitting the shore. I remember watching this. I had no idea that this is how D-Day happened.
No.
That there was this whole group of airborne guys that dropped in behind the lines. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's crazy. Yeah.
It goes to one of the vets at the beginning that says, who wants to volunteer for the airborne? And like, what's the airborne? Are you going to jump out of a plane? Go to hell. It's like, oh, but you get paid double. Oh. Okay.
I'll raise my hand. Yeah. $50 extra. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I thought that was just a great moment.
Yeah. Probably the best line of the whole episode right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't even in the dramatic part. And you're right. That seeing those veterans and hearing them talk about it. And even when they say, it was different then because we were attacked. It was a very different time. And one of the things I thought was very fascinating that I didn't fully realize. So this came out 20 years ago, and I went back and looked, like, what time of year did this come out? Was this a summer thing? Was it a spring thing? The first 2 episodes debuted on HBO Sunday, September 9th, 2001. 2 days before 9/11. The first 2 episodes came out.
Yeah.
And so 2 days before 9/11, you hear this veteran say, we were attacked, and that united our country. And it was a different time because of that. You had people committing suicide because they couldn't go fight for our country. And then 2 days later, we were attacked, and it united our country, and we were off fighting to preserve what we have once again. I just thought that was fascinating, that we're at this profound piece of filmmaking was coming out while the country was dealing with the next great tragedy that happened.
Crazy. Yeah, I still remember that morning. And that's just looking and watching my TV and just kind of like not fully comprehending everything that was happening. I was like, what is going on? Like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was 12 when that happened, so I'm just like, whoa! I just in disbelief, and now you look back and it's like, man, what a crazy act of violence. And but yeah, that's crazy looking back on this now and hearing that line, and knowing that it came out like 2 days before, and of course see movies now where a lot of people are enlisting right after because of that event, because we got attacked, and they're signing up because now we're going to go back and get the people who attacked us, type of same kind of situation. So
Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, crazy parallels there as we're looking at World War II in this in-depth lens at the same time that we were dealing with 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing there. All right. Any last comments? Any last things you want to say about episode 1?
No, I think that's pretty much. I pretty much. That's my thoughts. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm good on this one.
Yeah, and yeah, like we said, this was just the introduction. There not much happens here, but we meet all the characters. We're gonna learn more about them as it goes along, and we'll be here to tell you all about it as we go along. Our plan is to release a couple of these a week as we go through. This is going to come out on the regular podcast channel. So if you're subscribing to Almost Sideways, you're going to be getting this content, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on the podcast channel. So that is episode 1. We'll be back at you in a few days with episode 2 and continuing to look at Band of Brothers.
One last thing too, because I also do daily notes. And we're talking about a Steven Spielberg produced film. We are starting a road to or journey with Spielberg leading up to West Side Story. We have a guest coming up this week. This episode will come out after the Band of Brothers episode. So Raiders of the Lost Ark is what we're starting with our guest Brett Doze, who actually is Almost Sideways Oscar bracket winner.
Yes, he is.
A few years ago. So Brett Doze will be joining me, and we'll be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark. So check that out.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So that is episode 1 of our Band of Brothers sideshow. Keep listening in and catch the rest of the series. Make sure you're watching along with us. Like I said, it's HBO Max. You can get it there. And if you get the metal tin box set, that's even better because it's a pretty cool box set to get. And so we'll be seeing you next time for our next episode. Until then, enjoy.
Later.